Howdy, soldiers. Surprise, I cut my hair. This was one slight mental breakdown at like 10 p.m. But other than that, it came out like really nice. Except for this piece. I don't know what she's doing. She's doing her best. I knew you were all coming, so I decorated for you. And also, do you like my new stays? I made them. I've been working on this for the last like couple weeks and they came out really nicely. And it's not sponsored or anything, but I will leave the shop that I bought the pattern from down below. All things considered, 2022 was a pretty good reading year for me. Like I branched out a lot more into new genres and I really deep dove into adult fantasy. I didn't read a lot of bad books or books I rated poorly this year. So this list was very difficult to cut down. Welcome everybody to A Model Who's Read's top 10 books of 2022. Before we officially get started, I want to make two caveats. Number one is that if you think that one of the books I'm mentioning today was like the worst book you read last year and you want to comment and tell me, oh, I hated that book, it was awful, I literally could not give a fuck because you're here on my channel where I made a video about me and my opinions. So unless you want to come and tell me like, oh, hey, actually that author kicks puppies or like is currently in jail for tax evasion, just like don't bother commenting, you know? Save your energy. Maybe turn that into something good, okay? Okay. And number two is that three books that I'm talking about today fall under the imprint of HarperCollins Publishing. HarperCollins is one of the big five publishers that has a variety of imprints. The HCP union has currently been on strike for now over a month, striking for fair working conditions and living wages. And a way that the union is asking to support them is to not post reviews of books by HarperCollins until they reach a fair contract. I'm not sure if that includes older books or books that are currently coming out or to be released. So I'm going to include the three that I want to include in here. I will tell you which ones they are. And in the meantime, I urge you, if you have not already, to sign their petition, which is linked in my description box, and to repost and retweet anything that they are posting, and refrain from publishing any new content until they have reached a fair contract. But if you want to buy any of the books that I mentioned, because you think they sound cool, there's actually a bookshop.org link that will take you to the HCP union page, and a portion of the proceeds from that page will go to support the HCP Hardship Fund. The publishing industry historically has incredibly low wages for the amount and scale of work that is being done. So I urge you to support the HCP union because that will likely cause ripple effects that will affect the entire industry. And we all want our book stories and our book babies being made in an ethical manner by people who are paid a fair living wage. So without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, and settle in while we go over the top 10 books that I read this year of 2022 in no particular order. One that I recently finished just in November, and it truly has rocked my world. I do know that The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake was technically published in 2020, but then Tor didn't publish it till 2022, so I'm counting it as 2022. This is my video. There are no rules. I can do whatever I want. I'm an adult, and you're not my real dad. My real dad doesn't even watch my videos. Oh no, that sounds really sad. He's very supportive. It's just he's not on the internet that much. And if you are my real dad, hey dad, what are you doing here? How'd you get here? The Atlas 6 follows 6 magical young adults as they all vie for a position in the mysterious Alexandrian Society, which is a secret society that studies knowledge, power, and magic. But of course, once they're there, they realize that they're competing against one another, but they also have to band together when outside forces threaten them and the library. Magical, new adult, dark academia masterpiece. And maybe this says something about me, but I love every single one of these horrible people. Everyone is constantly scheming and conniving and trying to figure out a way to use their magic, be it mental or physical, against one another or to manipulate someone else. And it's queer, it's full of philosophical and ethical debates. This is the villain origin story of 6 very hot, very talented, very smart, very terrible people, and I love all of them with my deep black soul. Next up was a bit of a wild card because I famously and historically have an impeccable talent for not reading sequels. If you go watch my last video, you will see my shame over the fact that I have like half a bookshelf worth of second books I've just never gotten around to. This December, I told myself I want to finish this book before the year is up. I'm so glad that I did because For the Throne by Hannah Whitten, oh my god, this blew me away. For the Throne is a sequel to For the Wolf, which is a Beauty and the Beast retelling with heavy themes of Little Red Riding Hood, which was all full of dark, twisted nature magic and blood and rot and curses. And For the Throne did not disappoint. Holy shit. This more closely follows Rodaris' sister Neve, as she traverses her own journey in the underworld shadow realm. And this book, oh, it is full of shadow kings and spider demons and these creepy upside down reverse root forests. Some of the coolest netherworld world building that I've ever read. A phenomenal example of enemies to lovers, and also showcases some of the sickest demonic body mods that I've ever seen in my life. This book focuses on choices and kind of having to reconcile the guilt and the shame of your own choices and like where you are trying to let control go. And I was not expecting to be so emotionally devastated at the end of this book. I was sobbing. And I do have a recording of me finishing this because I sent it immediately to a friend who was also reading this. So this is what I looked like. I just finished For the Throne. I'm having a lot of feelings. So yeah, I was a fucking mess. What a phenomenal duology, and I cannot wait for her third book coming next year. Number 3 is my first HarperCollins book. This is published by Harper Teen. Remember, that petition is in my description box below. Get a Little Angry with Blood Scion by Deborah Fale. This is a YA military fantasy based in Yoruban and Nigerian folklore, where our main character Sloane has the ability to control fire based on a connection that she has with one of her gods. But a big colonizing army has come over the continent and is recruiting forcibly children like her to hunt those like her with powers. This book is intense. It is rage. It is fire. It is bloody enough to rival a Saba Tahir novel, and that's saying something. This world building is on another level because not only do we have the history of the Scion people and their gods and their magic, but we also have the history of colonization of their continents. There are whole continents that are underwater because of war, and there are these magic floating statues that the colonizers cannot bring down because they've been imbued with the power of prayer. And Sloane is just, like, she's not okay. And I don't blame her, honestly, but she makes some rough decisions, and it really kind of focuses the decision back on the reader, like, well, would you do anything differently? I do have one question about the colonizer army, is like, how do they get so far? Because they keep killing off all their new recruits. I just feel like that's not the best business model for like incurring new signups, you know? This is an explosive book with a truly insane ending, and I cannot wait for War Widow, which comes out in 2023, because I can't wait for the new magic and the fire and the revenge. Ooh, I feel like I need to like calm down just a little bit. I'm getting too excited over this. Now to talk about a book that is on the complete opposite side of that spectrum. There is no fire, there is no magic, but that didn't stop me from enjoying this book way more than I thought it was going to. Like I mentioned in another video of mine, this year I really branched out into reading romance novels because I saw all of my friends on Book Talk reading all these super cute rom-coms, and I'm like, they all look so happy. Like, I feel like I'm missing out on something. And I was. Oh my gosh, I'm totally 100% on the rom-com train now. Choo choo, because Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake is now one of my favorite books of all time, and I never would have picked this up if not for Book Talk. This is a phenomenal queer novel that centers around Delilah, who's a New York photographer who is called back to her small town of Bright Falls to photograph her stepsister Astrid's wedding. And while she's there antagonizing her family and maybe trying to help set up a breakup between Astrid and her fiance, she starts falling in love with Claire, who's a redhead bookstore owner, like a girl after my own heart. Delilah is a delight. She's sassy and snarky, and like, I love watching her ruffle all of her family's feathers. It's flirty, it's spicy, but it also has some surprisingly deep themes of like family cycles of trauma and guilt and having to like come to terms with yourself as an adult. And I'm like, wow, in my rom-com? I love to see it. Next up is the first one that I will give an actual trigger warning to check out. I've said it before and I will say it again. Hal Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White is one of the grossest, most traumatic books I have ever read. So if you yourself are somebody with a plague phobia, religious trauma, or don't like body horror, you're not gonna like this book. But I personally am triple vaxxed, not religious, and don't mind reading about people puking up their liquefied internal organs. This is a post-apocalyptic biblical Armageddon novel that follows our main character Benji, who's a trans boy that has escaped his fanatic cult, but they have already infected him with a virus that is slowly turning him into a monster of biblical proportions. As he's escaping, he gets taken in by a group of queer teens who are there to try and help survive the end of the world, but also fight against the cult that he's escaped from, and he's trying to help them out and gain a new family, but also hide from them how monstrous he's becoming. It is a bubbling, sinewy mess of teeth and eyes that also goes into such wonderful themes of like found family and like finding yourself at the end of the world and just accepting yourself as being queer. It's like, oh, it's so wonderful. This is ugly horror and happy queerness and sweet romance, all encased in a book that is something like I have never read before. And it really asks the question, what's so wrong with being a little monstrous? Okay, so we just did 5. How are we feeling? You know, do you need a break? Do you need to go get a snack? I think I'm gonna go and replenish my cider a little bit, so no. Everyone take 5. All right, welcome back. Nextly is the second book from HarperCollins. Once again, if you would like to purchase this, please do so at the bookshop.org link because that will help out the HCP Union. And that is the fantastical, magical retelling of the Chinese folklore of Shangge and Haoyi, and that is Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. Now, the Legend of the Moon Goddess has many iterations and it's very long, so I'm just gonna link a site down below so you can hear it from them and not from some white girl who's also trying to keep this video on a time limit. Our main character, Scion, is the daughter of the banished moon goddess, and she has been sequestered on the moon her whole life, but when her powers come in a little bit too fast, she escapes down to the celestial kingdom where she disguises herself and gets a position as like a friend, companion to the prince of the celestial kingdom. And as she grows up there, she joins the celestial army in hopes of getting recognition from the emperor, who will then give her a favor, and she can use that favor to save her mother. And her determination will bring her on a journey full of magic and monsters and court politics amongst the celestial kingdoms. Her writing is gorgeous. It is so full of magic, and the magic is so sensational and colorful. Also, there are dragons! Yes, can we get more of this, please? I want a dragon in every book in 2023. Also, a love triangle that I don't hate? It's more likely than you think. And Scion is just, she's so cool. She's so capable and strong and smart. And I don't know if I want to be her or be on her, but like, oh my god, she's so cool. And I can't wait to read the sequel, which is Heart of the Sun Warrior, which I know I'm being sent, but I will not review it until HCP has a fair contract. I'm feeling a little annoyed with myself because I always say, okay, this next book or coming up next or nextly is this, and I'm getting sick of it too. So we're gonna pull out all the thousands of dollars of English major that are still somewhere in my brain. This upcoming novel we are to speak of is a book that I feel is not quite the same as a lot of other fantasies that I like, because I really like densely world-built, very large-scale fantasy books, and this book definitely has that really dense world building. It's a little bit more about those interpersonal connections. One of the most lovely, heartwarming, interpersonal books that I read in 2022 was Estranged and Separate Endurance by Foz Meadows. I will also ask that you check the trigger warnings for this one as well, because there are some majorly disturbing scenes and topics in this book, but I also respect the way that Foz Meadows handled them and worked them into the plot line, so it didn't seem like trauma porn. Hi, quick thing, if my hair looks completely different, it's because I realized how flat it was and just went to go recurl it. Okay, good. Let's keep going. Who cares about continuity? This is a Byzantian-inspired world that is so full of language and new customs and so full of cultural world building. It's so good. Our main character, Vel, is a minor nobleman who's been promised in marriage to the princess of an opposing kingdom. When it comes out that Vel is gay, the other kingdom just says, oh yeah, that's fine, and then marries him off to the prince instead. But Vel also comes from a society that really looks down on queerness, whereas Kay, who is now suddenly in a political marriage that he didn't want, his culture looks at queerness very openly and normally. So the two of them are stuck in this agreement that neither of them really wants, but they eventually become allies and then friends and then lovers, and they're banding together against some political upheavals because of their marriage. And Vel is also battling his own internalized homophobia and misogyny and coming into himself in an environment that allows him to be himself. And I know that the phrase OTP has not been uttered since like 2012 Tumblr, but if I had one, it would be Kay and Vel. The relationship is just so sweet and built on support and trust and actually progresses at a fairly reasonable rate. And it just came out that there's gonna be another book set in this world, but I don't know if it's a direct sequel or like a companion novel. But either way, I will be buying it because I love spending money and love supporting my favorite authors. Capitalism really popped off today, ladies. Number 8 is one of the most vibrant, intense, wild books that I read this year, and that was just, oh my god, oh wow, I'm so sorry. That was The Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas. This is like Percy Jackson meets the Hunger Games, but with Mayan folklore. And if I've learned anything in my Aztec and Mayan studies, it is that the pantheon of Mayan gods is the #1 pantheon of gods that you do not fuck with. Our main character is a trans boy named Tio, who is a semidios. He is the son of the goddess Quetzal, and he accidentally gets himself involved in something called the Sunbearer Trials, where all of the semidioses will come together and compete to see who is going to protect the cities from the old ancient gods that are hoping to destroy it. So he's suddenly thrust into this competition with old enemies and new friends, as well as a very fiery love interest. This world is so colorful and vibrant, and what I really love is that the gods are such a regular part of people's everyday. Like, for example, Quetzal, she's much taller and like more magical than kind of everybody else, but she also just like chills in her temple, and then people come up and are like, oh hey, here's some offerings, you know, how's it going? And she's like, oh hi, nice to see you, thank you so much for this, you're blessed. And then everyone's like, all right, great, thanks, see you tomorrow. Like, it's just totally normal. I made several very embarrassing, very high-pitched noises over the power and the sweetness of friendship in this book. It's so great. It's incredibly diverse. There are people of all skin tones, and people who are queer, who are trans, who are non-binary, who are deaf, who are mute, who have disabilities. And the whole ending is like Indiana Jones meets Tron, but then with gods, and it was really, really neat. Second to last is the third of the Harper Collins books. This is one of my favorite books of all time, and one of the best books that I read this year. So if you would like to make sure that this author continues to write books, check out the links in my description. Wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have to say that every time I talk about the books? And there were just people being paid fair wages. Wow, wouldn't that be amazing? When this came out, I knew I was gonna like it because it was a dark fairy tale retelling that had to do with a cursed garden and like dark black magic, and I was like, absolutely. But then also apparently it was like whimsical, so like whimsical macabre. Is that just what I like to read now? Does that sum up every one of my favorite? This is happening in real time right now. Yeah, I guess whimsically macabre is like a way to describe what I love to read. And one of the books that falls into that category is Juniper and Thorin by Ava Reid. This is a gothic horror retelling of the Grimm's fairy tale, The Juniper Tree. It follows Marlin Chin, a young witch, and her 2 sisters that are trapped in this crumbling Victorian mansion by their xenophobic wizard father, who is under a curse himself. But at night, Marlin Chin sneaks out and starts to have a romantic relationship with the new male principal dancer of the ballet. But as her independence grows, the curse on her father becomes more and more monstrous, and now she has to choose between blood and desire and old magic and progress. This book is also disgusting, and I love it. The way that they wrote this book is so unsettling because there's like a bit of a twist on every sentence, so the reader is constantly on edge and like feels unsettled. And while it doesn't break the fourth wall, Marlin Chin herself kind of knows that she's in a fairy tale, so she's constantly looking for like omens or rules of 3 to either help or hinder her journey forward. There are also some trigger warnings for this one involving bodies, so like body horror and body dysmorphia and eating disorders are heavily prevalent in this, and it really dives deep into looking at the monstrosity that is yourself and truly coming into yourself to be the swamp witch that you were meant to be. And that's what I'm going for. Like, I'm only 27, but I do feel like that is my final form. Before we officially talk about the last of the top 10 of the year, I want to give a couple of honorable mentions. Hey, there are no rules in this video, and like I mentioned before, this was a very difficult list to get down to 10, so I'm gonna give 4 books just 15 minutes of fame in the spotlight for a second, if you'll let me. Number 1 is Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail by Ashley Herring Blake, the companion/sequel to Delilah Green Doesn't Care. This is another queer girl romance that follows Astrid, Delilah's stepsister, as she tries to renovate a old bed and breakfast and the competition that she meets there. This is also so funny and fast-paced and so full of gay panic. It's very relatable. And another romance that I really, really loved this year was Dating Dr. Dale by Nisha Sharma. Nisha and I are like friends one's online, so like, hey girl, hey, what's up? Your book's really good. This is a retelling of Taming of the Shrew that centers Karina and Prem, who both enter into this fake marriage to help the other one get what the other one wants, and chaos ensues. It's so funny and fun and heartwarming, and like, Karina, girly, you need to lock down this man. He is amazing. And a wonderful young adult fantasy that I loved this year was A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lin, and I went to both of her book signings. I got my book signed, just saying. This is a Chinese folklore-inspired fantasy novel that follows a tea-making competition and our main character entering, but then secrets of the court and intrigue and mystery and maybe poison, we don't know. Magical competitions, man. Like, I just need to know that about a book and I'll buy it. And fourthly is a book that you are probably all expecting to be the final book of this list because I am on Book Talk too much. But Babel by R.F. Kuang goes on the honorable mentions because I did not finish this book in time to film this video in time for the end of the year, which is my own fault. I'll be going straight to jail after I finish filming this, I know. Historical, magical, dark academia centering around languages. R.F. Kuang herself has spoken at the HarperCollins union strike, and this book is all about unionizing, so, you know, take that power back. And lastly is a book that really came out of left field. I was not expecting to like this book as much as I did, and I was not expecting it to make the top 10 books of the year for me, but what a gorgeous, immersive, heartbreaking, heart-wrenching book. I'm talking about Thistle Foot by Jenna Rose Nethercott. This is a modern Jewish urban fantasy novel that centers the two estranged Yaga siblings who are brought together through an inheritance. That inheritance turns out to be a cottage on chicken legs named Thistle Foot. The two of them themselves have some interesting powers, and they both have roots in theater, so they pack up the house and take the show on the road, literally performing for audiences while a mysterious figure of the Long Shadow Man is tracking down Thistlefoot in hopes of destroying it. You see through multiple flashes of history and all the things that Thistlefoot has seen and how Jewish history has impacted the world that we live in today. The writing in here is phenomenal. It is so incredibly beautiful. I would actually comp it to the writing of The Starless Sea or maybe 10,000 Doors of January, where it's whimsical and macabre, which we just figured out that I really love, but all of the sentences and all the paragraphs have just that little twist on them that really keeps you paying attention because you're never quite expecting like where the sentence is gonna go. It's really cool. Major warning though, it goes from 0 to 60 real fast, about the halfway point, and by the end of this book, I was inconsolably sobbing on my couch, and I don't have any video evidence of it, but I do have this picture, which this does not do it justice. Like, I was crying so hard, I had to go and redo my skincare. Like, I'm literally tearing up thinking about the ending of this novel. Oh my god, I had like one shot of whiskey, I need to get it together. And that is that on that. Oh my god, we did it. That only took 2.5 hours. My cider is cold now, but doesn't matter, it still tastes good. It's just spicy apple juice. Please leave down below some of your top books this year. It doesn't have to be 10, unless you like really want to or something. Maybe you're bored, maybe you're home from work or school, and you know, who am I as an ex-English major to deny you the pleasure of writing a multi-paragraph essay? I also hope that all of you had a wonderful Christmas or Yule or Saturnalia or are having a wonderful Hanukkah or whatever else that you celebrate in the winter time. You know, I decorated a little bit, got my apartment all Christmassy and had some nice time with some friends and family and ate so many cookies, like so many cookies. I made 24 cookies to bring with me to like various holiday events. All of them except one get canceled because we've had stupid, ridiculous amounts of snowfall in Vancouver over the last couple of weeks. So now I'm just stuck with so many freaking cookies. You know, when I was a kid, I'd be like, that sounds so great. But as an adult, I realized that is, an endeavor. I hope all of you are having a cozy holiday season, and I will see you all in 2023. That's so cool to say. And 23 is my lucky number, so fingers crossed. And I'm already going into 2023 so much better than I was going into 2022. Like, I have a therapist, I've graduated, and I've pierced my ears. So it's like the 3 big things. 2023 is gonna be the year of cool earrings, let me tell you. You know where to click to like the video. You know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are. I will see you all next week and next year. Bye!